Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 76 of Toss Nutrition on Sports Show. It is your main man, T Squared, Tristain Thomas. What's up, everybody? This week, we talk some Bucks. They're not doing so hot right now. And there was a game that took place last week that caught my attention. We'll discuss. The Brewers, opening day is soon. We got to talk about their rotation. We got to talk about the offense and whether or not I'm intrigued. And in the Toss Sweep, we got some more COVID dumbassery. And the NFL is expanding. All that is yet to come later on in the show. But you know how we get things started. Can I even speak? How we get things started. We get things started with the state of the state here on Toss, and let's get to those Milwaukee Bucks. They had a rather difficult loss to the LA Clippers last night as we record this program on a Tuesday. They played Monday night. Nothing like some good West Coast basketball, late night Bucks game. Sit up and you have the house kind of silent to yourself, and you can really sit down and dig into it and get into it and watch it and be intense and everything else. But, man, that was a hot and cold game. As I mentioned in the teaser, the Bucks are not so hot right now. This time last week, we were talking about how the Bucks were hot, and they were the hottest team in the NBA, having had won 9 out of their last 10 games. Being 28-14, third place in the Eastern Conference and rising. They nearly ran down the Sixers and the Nets. At that point, they have won 7 straight games. They were hotter than hot. Hotter than fish grease, if you will. And now you fast forward to this week. 29-17. They're still third in the East, but they're losing ground to the Sixers and Nets. They've lost 3 in a row. Again, I mentioned they lost to the LA Clippers last night, 129-105, and it was a hot and cold game. They came out and they just could not miss in the first quarter. Drew Holiday went off in that first quarter. He could not be stopped. Then the second quarter rolls around and they managed to score 17 points. Clippers took the lead. Third quarter runs, comes by, and the Bucks remember how to score. Then the fourth quarter, they forget again. 19 points in the fourth quarter. This game was so maddening because you have the number 1 scoring team in the NBA in the Milwaukee Bucks. And that defense continues to struggle. So you end up with these hot and cold moments. And for them to be the number 1 scoring team in the NBA, they sure do go through some scoring droughts, like some extended scoring droughts. Like they've had some putrid quarters of basketball scoring. It's absolutely puzzling to me. Giannis was missing a ton of bunnies. I mean, the Clippers really did not do anything special on defense. And I know that's an area that they've really been struggling in as of late. Ty Lue is a defensive guy, but they've really been struggling on that side of the court. They really didn't do anything special. The Bucks just could not make baskets. And then they could not stop baskets. Clippers hitting a multitude of threes. Luke Kennard got hot and he started making everything. And it just spiraled after that. Once they went down double digits, it was over. That was just absolutely maddening. It puzzles you how a team is statistically the number 1 scoring team in the entire association, And they could go through scoring droughts like that. And I get it. It's the NBA, and you have professionals on the other side, and you come across some teams that can just lock you down, or you have a night where you're just not making shots, and it just turns out to be that way. Sometimes it be like that, right? Like the song. But that was really Badger-like with the scoring droughts last night and in the multitude of games. And that defense continues to struggle. Look, they're still trying to put these pieces together. You know, in a typical season, we're getting ready to get ready for some playoff basketball in a few weeks. But the playoffs don't start until May. You still have to be engaged. You got 20-plus games left. I believe it's 26 games, 28 games, something like that remaining. You have to remain locked in. You still have a lot to play for. We have to begin looking at these games a lot more critically. We have to start looking at these games a lot more critically. You have to be able to see tangible improvements. And yes, every team's going to struggle. You're going to go through these little losing streaks. Bucks are on one currently. They've lost 3. But what happens in those losses that you could just take from and pluck from and say, okay, this is illustrating my point. This is what we need to get better at. That's got to start happening now. These guys have to be locked in and engaged. And I mentioned still trying to put the pieces together. And I mentioned in the tease at the opening of the show that there was a game last week that really intrigued me, and it was the Bucks and Knicks game. Bucks decided it was the second game of a back-to-back. You had lost to the Celtics on Friday after you blew them out on Wednesday. You got the Knicks coming into town, and it's no disrespect to the Knicks, but you feel like you can get that game even if you rest your best. No Giannis, no Drew. A lot of guys out of the lineup. It was a young fella's game. It was a game in which Mike Budenholzer said, okay. And I think a lot of people in Bucks Twitter are going to say, finally. It was a game in which he said, okay, we have to see what we have in these young guys. We have to see what we have. We have to see if any of these young guys will crack this rotation and be able to help us come playoff time. We have to see what we have. And it ended up being one of the more entertaining, fun basketball games of the year. Yes, the Bucks lost. They lost. But what intrigued me and what encouraged me was Budenholzer said, okay, on the second game of a back-to-back, I'm going to use that game to see what we have. I'm going to play all these young guys and see exactly who can truly help us on our quest to win a championship. The Nassus played well. I believe he had 23. Jordan Moore played well. Shot the ball extremely well. He had 21. Sam Merrill balled out. Mamadi Diakite, he played well. These are all young guys that so many people on Bucks Twitter were just screaming, hey, Budenholzer has to find a way to get these guys into the lineup. And I say pump your brakes because you can't put every single young guy into that lineup. And I get it. Some people are fed up with Brook, even though he's been a bit better since the All-Star break. Some people have been fed up with Pat, but Pat's been playing a lot better. Shooting it over 40% from three. Some people are even split on Bryn Forbes, even though he's been shooting pretty well. But I get it. You want to see what these young guys can do. Do you have something in these young guys, and can they play a part for the future? Can they play a part not just for the future, but for now? Can they give you something now? And I've been saying it since these guys were drafted. Look, War can shoot. Merrill can shoot. Diakite, I wasn't sure. He was very good at Virginia. I just was not sure how his game would translate. But I was excited nonetheless. Played well in the G League. Played well in his time, and he even cracked, and I believe he may have cracked Budenholzer's rotation. He got some important minutes in yesterday's game against the Clippers. And this wasn't garbage time. These were in-game important minutes. And he produced pretty well. So that begs the question, what does Budenholzer do? Is he going to inject Diakite more? Looks like he's going to, but it's one game, so let's pump our brakes on that. What is he going to do with Merrill? What is he going to do with War? Those guys can shoot, and that's something you need. Are you going to get these guys revved up? Are you going to get these guys more minutes and get them prepared for a playoff environment? That part has really, really piqued my interest after that Knicks game. These young guys need time. They should get some minutes. You got to see what you have in them. You can't just stash them on the bench and think you're doing them any favors. G League season is over. You have nowhere to put them for them to go and get any significant minutes. You have to play these guys and see what you have. And you got to play them in minutes that mean something. You don't want to do it to the detriment of your team, and that's why Budenholzer is the head coach. But not doing it could also be a detriment to your team. So that's the next thing I'm going to keep my eye on is what is he going to do with these young guys? Have they finally cracked his lineup, his rotation? The way they played against the Knicks last Saturday, yes, it was a loss. And they could have folded. Honestly, they could have. Knicks had a big lead, and those guys dug in and came back. Late game execution ended up costing them that game. But they showed you that they can play if given the opportunity. And hopefully Budenholzer heeds that call. We'll keep our eye on it. Continuing here on State of the State here on Toss, let's talk about those Milwaukee Brewers. Yes, Brewers are back. Regular season Brewers are about to be back. April 1st. That's a Thursday. Opening day at AmFam Park. Yes, it is American Family Field. Not even AmFam Park. It's American Family Field. Not even a park anymore. It's a field. But I digress. It's Miller Park forever as far as I'm concerned. It's sold out against your border rival, the Minnesota Twins. There won't be any tailgating allowed. That's a big boo, big downer. Eventually a return. And if you've never been to a tailgate, and I still call it Miller Park, but it's AmFam Field. But if you've never been to a tailgate at a Brewer game, do yourself a favor and get to one. it is really in a lot of ways sometimes it's even better than the game. I'm just going to put it out there. Sometimes it's even better than the game. A lot of things happen in the tailgate, let me tell you. But no tailgating right now, obviously, because you're still being careful because of COVID. It is still very much prevalent, and we'll talk more about that in a tall sweep. Got some dumbassery there. I've said time and time again on this program that the Brewers could not come into 2021 with that same deplorable, putrid, paltry offense that they had in 2020. Cannot do it. Can't do it. I've also said that the strength of this team will continue to be pitching until they do something about that offense. So let's hit up the pitching. What are they looking like? Now, obviously, they're going to have a strong bullpen with the Rookie of the Year, Devin Williams. You got Josh Hader back in there. You got some good arms in that bullpen. What does that rotation look like? Now, they have set their rotation. Their 40-man roster has been set. Or excuse me, the roster has been set. It's not 40. I'm so used to spring training, but the roster has been set. The regular season roster has been set. And this is how the Brewers rotation stacks up right now. Now, the top two, no surprise, they're 1A, 1B, ace out-getters. Woodruff and Burns. You hope for health for those guys, especially Burns, who could not pitch in the postseason because he was injured, as well as Williams. You're hoping those guys stay healthy all year long. And we'll get a little bit of tidbit about that in a second. But that's no surprise. They're at the top of that rotation, 1-2, Woodruff, Burns. You got Hauser, who's had some good moments, but then he's had some pretty bad moments. But, I mean, he's overall steady as it goes. You've got Anderson in there, again, another guy who's pretty steady as it goes. And then you got fastball Freddie Peralta in the 5th spot. Now, that one for me is a bit of a surprise. Now, I know he's pitched a little bit better in spring training. I know his changeup and his slider have gotten much, much better. They're continuing to evolve and improve. He's much more than just a fastball thrower, even though we call him Fastball Freddie. The curveball is good when he has control of it. Kid's got a lot of talent. It's just a matter of him putting it all together. And he's still very, very young. He's in his early 20s. I mean, he's still young, but you have him under contract for a long time. You got him for another, I believe, 5 or 6 seasons. So you got him under contract for a while on a team-friendly deal for sure. He's still developing pitches, still evolving his game. Everything will get put together, and they put him in the rotation because they feel that his stuff can be that good and that he will eventually put it all together, and they're giving him that opportunity. Again, he's pitched very, very well in spring training. But I thought for certain he was going to go to the bullpen, and Lindblom would be the guy that would be the 5th starter. Well, that's not the case because Lindblom will start in the bullpen. Peralta gets that last spot in the rotation. Now, it kind of doesn't matter because of what President of Baseball Operations David Stearns came out and said on a radio interview just Monday, that the Brewers would be using a 6-man rotation at times, and at other times they would be skipping starts to keep guys fresh. He said himself that these pitchers probably won't hit 30 starts. They're trying to keep them fresh, and they're trying to keep them healthy, and quite frankly, I can't blame them. I cannot blame them. They have the health and mind of everybody. They're trying to keep as many innings off of those guys' arms to get to a point where they're able to pitch and they're healthy enough to pitch when it matters most, which is the postseason. But it's also a fine balancing act that Craig Counsell is going to have to kind of perform here. You have to get out there and get your best pitchers out there to put you in position to win. And if those guys aren't going to be making 30 starts, that means you're probably going to be trying to keep the innings down on those guys too. So you're going to be relying heavy on the bullpen. Now, look, it's no different than any other year. Bullpen was kind of the strength. Pitching has been the strength of this team for many seasons. But you're going to employ a 6-man rotation, and you're also going to skip starts to try to keep these guys healthy and able to pitch if postseason becomes a reality. Well, those guys got to pitch to help you make postseason a reality, and that's where the fine balancing act comes into it. That's definitely something else to watch, but this rotation, look, this rotation is as good as anyone. Will I put it in the best rotation in all of baseball? No, I won't put it in the best rotation of all of baseball. But, I would probably say they're top 10. Woodruff and Burns alone will put them in top 10. 2 really good young pitchers who continue to improve. You got one on the back end in Peralta, who is a really young pitcher who continues to improve. This rotation is stacked with some good arms, and so is that bullpen. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Now let's get to that lineup. Told you I didn't want that paltry, putrid, disgusting offense from 2020 back in 2021. Just looking at a potential lineup, and I'm going to roll through it. And this is a potential lineup with a DH. Now, obviously, we know the DH is not coming to the NL. I wish they would have kept that rule in place, but they did not. But just a DH situation. Excuse me, not the DL, the DH. Would it come to the DL? Did I say the DH? The DH coming to the NL. That's a lot of numbers, a lot of letters to try and cram in there, try and remember all that. But anyway, just being real with y'all, I messed up on that one. The DH in the NL is not happening. I wish it would have, but it is not. But just a potential DH lineup. Just take a gander at this lineup and tell me, you can't tell me this is not going to be difficult for pitchers to get through. Lead off Colton Wong. Behind him, Keston Hiura. Behind him, the former NL MVP Christian Yelich, who is due for a bounce-back year. Behind him, Avi Garcia. Behind him, Jackie Bradley Jr. Behind him, a returning Lorenzo Cain who opted out due to COVID. When the COVID surge started happening in MLB, he decided to opt out for the rest of the season. I can't blame him, but now he is back. Should be healthy. Give you some good at-bats. Behind Cain is Omar Narvaez. Another guy due for a bounce-back year. He's a good hitter. Kick and hit. Behind him, Orlando Arcia, who at times last season was the Brewers' best hitter. Believe it or not. And behind him, Luis Urias. I mean, that's not even to mention, if you take one of those guys out, you put Daniel Vogelbach, who made this roster specifically, as Craig Counsell said, he's going to get him a lot of pinch hit at bats. This is a difficult lineup to get through. You got a lot of guys who battle, could take a lot of pitches, who could get walks, who make it tough on pitchers. You got some pop in that lineup. This is going to be a difficult line. If these guys do what they normally do, have a normal season, not talk about that COVID shortened, started spring training, stopped it, had to come back for an abbreviated training, get into the regular season is short. Guys were really in the groove. They were thrown all the way off type of season. I'm talking about a normal 162 type season. If those guys do what they normally do across a normal 162, how is this not one of the better lineups in all of baseball? How is this not one of the better offenses in all of baseball? This is exactly why I said I'm intrigued. We knew pitching was going to be the strength. It has been the strength for many seasons now, especially on the console. But they went to work on this lineup. Signing Colton Wong. Here is still there. Yelich is due for a bounce back year. You get Lorenzo Cain back. You go and sign Jackie Bradley. Narvaez is due for a bounce back year. Arcia, if he can continue to improve on what he did last season when he was one of the best hitters on the Brewers squad, it should excite you. Avi Garcia, another guy with some pop in his bat. This has the potential to be a really, really good team. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you predictions on wins because with baseball, weird things happen. Do I think this team has the potential to win 92 games? Absolutely. I think they can win 92 games. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But this has the potential to be a really, really good squad. It intrigues me. It excites me. I honestly cannot wait until the regular season begins. Won't have to wait that much longer. Thursday, April 1st, they get things started against the Minnesota Twins. And that's the state of the state. Bucks, not so hot right now. They've lost 3 in a row. They're still third in the East. And Budenholzer has a lot to think about after that young gun showing against the Knicks this past Saturday. And the Brewers put things together. The roster is ready. The regular season begins April 1st. And I am very intrigued by how good this team with health and production can be. Let's move on to the toss sweep. The toss sweep, brought to you by the good folks at TossNationMedia.com. Toss Nation Media, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Oh, you guys know that we touch on a little bit of everything in the toss sweep, and there's a serious virus going on, a deadly virus, a virus that has taken away 3 of my loved ones. Has one of my great friends still dealing with the effects. He's a long hauler. Various colleagues dealing with families who have had it and having lost loved ones as well. I mean, it is a serious deal. It is not to be made fun of. It is not to be disrespected. It needs to be respected, and you need to take precautions. Mask up, distance, wash your hands, vaccinate when you can. These are all the things that we can do to help each other get through. But there's going to be people who are going to do what it is they want to do, and they have their own thoughts, and they disregard every bit of proof and every shred of science involved in how we can help each other make it through this, and they form their own opinions and come up with their own diagnosis. Yesterday, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, began for the women in the NCAA tournament, women's tournament. Baylor was involved in that. They lost to UConn. And, you know, you feel bad for the ladies. And I said this on the Toss Facebook page at facebook.com/TOnSportsShow, that I feel bad for the ladies in the game. But I do not feel bad about their head coach, Kim Mulkey, not being able to coach in the Final Four this season, because she said some absolute trash that is dangerous and irresponsible when it comes to the testing and the prevention of this disease. I'm going to let y'all hear it straight from her mouth. This is Kim Mulkey last night in her Zoom conference after Baylor's loss to UConn in the Elite 8 in the women's tournament.
I don't think my words will matter, but after the games today and tomorrow, there's 4 teams left, I think, on the men's side and the women's side. They need to dump the COVID testing. Wouldn't it be a shame to keep COVID testing, and then you got kids that end up having test positive or something, and they don't get to play in the Final Four? So you need to just forget the COVID test and let the 4 teams that are playing in each Final Four go battle it out.
Wouldn't it be a shame if one of the kids caught COVID and they're not able to play in the Final Four? Because it's so different than a kid getting injured by exploiting their athletic talents for your financial gain, because they don't get shit out of it. You basically told your team during that press conference, with that statement, with those comments, with those thoughts, that you don't give a damn about them. You don't give a damn about their health. You just want them to play. You want them out there exploiting their gifts, their athletic gifts, for your financial gain and others. Not their own. They're putting their livelihoods on the line. And the thing is, the thing that just blows my mind about it, and including the disregard for her players and other players' safety, is the fact that this heifer had COVID. She had COVID. Now, I don't know about any long-term effects that she may have had for it. I don't know many of the symptoms that she had for it. But the very fact that you contracted this disease should tell you that the testing and the prevention measures used should stay in place for everybody's safety. Just because you had it and you're not dead, because Lord knows you're in that age range that that could die from this, does not mean that it should be a free-for-all and that you should let your guard down and allow this thing to flare up all over again. Now, look, we got vaccines out there. There's 3 vaccines out there, and that's great. It's a modern miracle. The wonders of science. I mean, it truly is wondrous. But those vaccines do not make you Teflon to this disease. There's starting to be a surge in cases. There's starting to be a surge in hospitalizations again. Deaths are starting to go on the uptick again. All because people and cities and businesses are starting to let their guard down when we're so close to getting out of this. And it is that mentality that keeps us in this bullshit. Her rhetoric is dangerous. It fuels the fire of people whose thoughts and rhetoric are also dangerous. And it's going to keep us in this eternal cycle of death and pain, and all of it is unnecessary and preventable. I don't know about y'all, but that is one person I would never, ever send my daughter to play for. We need a palate cleanser because that just angries up my blood. I've lost far too many people. We all have. Over 550,000 people have been lost because of this disease. And you got dumb idiots like that spewing that rhetoric. That is dangerous. It is just dangerous. It's irresponsible and dangerous and deadly. So let's cleanse the palate. Okay, let's finish the toss sweep on a good note. The NFL owners decided today to expand. Not an expansion team, so sorry, London. I know, we got lenses in the UK, and I love y'all. Thank y'all for rocking with Toss each and every single week. But we ain't talking about expansion for a team for y'all. Not yet, anyway. They're expanding the regular season. It goes from 16 games to 17 games. That means the regular season increases in length to 18 weeks because of the bye weeks. According to the NFL, the added game will feature teams from opposing conferences that finished in the same place within their division the previous season. So obviously things change from season to season, and sometimes they don't. I mean, some teams kind of stay perpetually into that basement because they kind of have to rebuild and do all that stuff to get good again. But some teams may be good and other teams may be bad, so it might be a lopsided matchup, and sometimes both those teams are good that year, and it's like, oh man, we got a banger. We got a banger in game 17. As a result of the regular season going to 18 games, the preseason is now reduced to 3 games, which is something I think everybody has been waiting for, but I don't think they were wanting that 18th game, but we'll get to that. The 17th game, added to the regular season, but we'll get to that in a second. Just look at some of these 17th game matchups that we are going to get in the 2021 season. Packers, Chiefs. Now that's a redo because the last time these two teams faced off, Patrick Mahomes did not play. So you have a matchup, a potential matchup. Let's knock on wood for health. You have a potential matchup between Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Now, let's put the asterisk next to it. This is a Week 18 game. This is a Week 18 game. This is the 17th game. If these teams have everything wrapped up, let's say division, seeding, I don't think you're going to get that matchup. It might be a battle of the backups. But if there is something to play for, then you might end up getting that big-time quarterback matchup. But that one is very, very intriguing. The Vikings and Chargers have a chance to be pretty intriguing. I mean, the Chargers changing their head coach, Brandon Staley out there now as the head coach. That has potential to be good if the Vikings can bounce back. Seahawks and Steelers, that has potential to be really good. Rams, Ravens, talk about defense. Cardinals, Browns, that has potential to be a big-time shootout. Saints and Titans, that could be a really good one. Buccaneers and Colts, that could be a really, really good one. So there's some really intriguing 17th game matchups. Now, I'm going to say this, and even though it's another game and it's like, okay, great, we'll see how competitive they actually are. I never wanted a 17-game season. I think it is just fine at 16, but I get it. You're trying to make more on game day, and if they compensate the players, and the players are all for it, which obviously they are because of the collective bargaining agreement, then okay, let's roll with it. But I think 16 was just perfect. So now you're going to see teams probably get in, much like the NFC least, at least a game under 500. You could have teams get in more games under 500. I mean, could you imagine if a team makes the playoffs at 5-12? A 5-12 division winner. Can you imagine that? Oh, you're going to have everybody just upset about that one. You thought it was bad when the Seahawks won the division at 7-9 and won a playoff game. Wait till you get a 5-12 division winner hosting a playoff game. That's going to be a whole other level of controversy with that. But they decided to go to 17 games. You knew it was coming. I liked 16. I will forever love 16. I thought that was the perfect amount. But now we got to deal with a 17th game. But if they're gonna put these matchups like that, and the parameters that they have for it are kind of intriguing, because it has potential for both teams to improve, and that be a really good matchup. But that's if everybody plays, they don't have things wrapped up. It could be very intriguing, or it could just be an absolute wrong move. I guess we'll find out. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. That was episode 76 of Toss, Tristain on Sports Show. You all know where to find me on social media at D20Double on Instagram and Twitter. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show is your home for the Toss, Tristain on Sports Show on Facebook. Go ahead and check us out there. Follow us. Talk about a lot of things there that we don't get a chance to touch on during the show. And, of course, TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Check us out there. But, as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. It's T-Squared, Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.